Hello, everybody. It's Miss Carter again. Today we are going over lesson 4 um, in our reproduction unit, and it's over the reproduction and growth of plants. So, if you recall, yesterday we talked about reproduction in animals and how the biggest obstacle is finding a mate, and then second would be protecting the offspring. Well, today we're looking at the reproduction in plants and how they reproduce. Okay, so let's go ahead and click present here. All right, so how do plants reproduce? Now, yesterday when we were talking about animals, we dealt with only sexual reproduction. But today with plants, it's going to be both sexual and asexual reproduction. So, in other words, you have some that are going to be needing one or needing two parents, and some that have only the one parent. Okay. Not all plants have seeds. Seeds would be the what leads to sexual reproduction. So the seedless plants are going to instead grow from spores, and the examples are moss and ferns, which we'll look at that here in just a minute. And that is an example of asexual reproduction. So plants that do not have seeds are basically going to reproduce from spores and reproduce basically themselves, not needing a second partner, not needing a mate in order to be able to produce another plant. Okay, so again, the examples there are moss and ferns. There are two. Move this out of the way. There are two groups of seed plants or seeded plants. Flowering or flowerless and flowered seed plants. Both of those are going to participate in sexual reproduction. They produce seeds, so therefore it's part of sexual reproduction. So, in order to participate, for a plant to participate in sexual reproduction, it has to be a seed producer. Excuse me. So, the example that we just went over with asexual reproduction is the moss here. And you can see how its spores can come out here and can be planted into the soil by the wind or, well, mainly by the wind. And that's going to then grow in the soil and produce an exact replica of the parent fern or moss, whichever the case may be. Okay. Remember, asexual is that the child or the offspring is going to be genetically identical to the parent. Then the next one, which we started to talk about there, is with seeds. You have cross pollination or sexual reproduction that happens here. And this is where you have two separate plants that are part of it. The pollen from one is going to be planted on the stigma from the other. And how this happens, we talked about before, can be from the wind. It can be from, like with the bee here, it can be from other animals rubbing against the flower and then rubbing against another flower, depositing the pollen that way. Or it can be done in a lab or done in a greenhouse with humans as well. Okay, so this is sexual reproduction here. This is an example of cross pollination, which we're going to show here in just a minute in your notes. So basically, just take the pollen from one plant and it has to go over to the stigma of another plant. Okay. So your seeded plants, as we just saw in that last picture there, participate in pollination, which is when pollen grains land on a female plant structure of the same species. That's key there, that it needs to be of the same species in order to be facilitated or start. If pollen joins with an egg, fertilization occurs, seeds develop. That's what we saw with the bee there, with the pollen being deposited on the second plant. Pollen is produced by the male cones, and the eggs are found within the female cone. In flowering plants, the female reproductive organ is called the pistil. There are two types of pollination. The one we just saw was in the picture. That is cross-pollination. That is when one plant pollinates a plant of another variety, but still in the same species. Two plants' genetic material combines, and that results in seeds. The other type is called self-pollinating. That involves only one flower, and it occurs when pollen grains from the other or from that flower fall directly onto the stigma. So basically, the grains from the pistil would fall directly onto the stigma, and you would then have pollination occur, creating the seeds and the offspring then from those. Okay, so pretty, down to it with those. The big thing you want to make sure that you keep here is number one, whether or not it has seeds. If it does not have seeds, it's going to be asexual, period. And then how it pollinates. If it does have seeds, you got the two options, either cross-pollinating or self-pollinating. Okay, so make sure that you get these notes down into your notebook. You will be having an open note quiz at the end of this week. So you want to make sure that you have these because you will not be allowed to use your computer notes for those. If you have any questions, email me or email Miss Mills, and have a good day. Thanks, guys. Bye.